Let's bring in Fox News contributor Byron York. From your, 50,000-foot vantage point, Byron, what did the shutdown accomplish?
Not very much for Democrats. They have had a real wild ride. In the course of about 7 or 8 days, they went from election euphoria to shutdown civil war to Epstein mania. I mean, just they went up and down in those 6 or 7 days. But through the whole time, they still have a fundamental divide that they can't solve, and that's between progressive Democrats and everybody else. And I think you can see the divide the most that in the pre-shutdown Democratic world, there's a lot of talk about removing the Democratic leader in the Senate, Senator Schumer. There are Democrats coming out and openly suggesting other alternatives like Senator Chris Murphy or maybe Senator Cory Booker, but they're openly talking about dumping the minority leader in the Senate, and a healthy, happy party does not do that.
You mentioned Chris Murphy. We just happen to have some sound from him in which he basically admits that a big part of the shutdown was just to oppose the president. Listen.
People. And I also worry that by capitulating, we have empowered Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is going to act even more brazenly and more lawlessly in the future because of how this vote turned out. Now, what did we get? The fact of the matter is, if you don't put constraints on Donald Trump's illegality, this democracy isn't going to be here next November. It isn't going to be here in 2028.
It sounds like there might be a bit of hyperbole there. We're not going to have democracy in 2028. When he refers to the president's illegality, what's he referring to?
Oh, the standard list of Democratic complaints. They're very upset, of course, about how ICE is enforcing immigration law. They're upset about the president wanting to send the National Guard to some crime-ridden local places. They're upset about the attacks on drug-running boats. There's a pretty long list of complaint among Democrats. But, what's extraordinary is he didn't talk about health care. If you remember, through the shutdown, Democrats said every day that it was all about premium subsidies for Obamacare. That's what the shutdown was about. And then afterwards, they said, no, it actually wasn't about that. It was about standing up to Trump, and we had to show our voters that we could just stand up to Trump in a general sort of way. And you thought, well, what about Obamacare? Was that part of it or what? It turned out to be a very confused and mixed message after Democrats finally collapsed in the shutdown.
Yeah. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso says that handicapping the president was a big part of the effort here. Listen.
To me, this Epstein matter, as well as the shutdown, they're trying to get out of the pain they've caused the country, the shutdown, and that's why the Democrats want to use this, and they want to make President Trump a lame duck president.
I guess you could say he's already a lame duck because he can't run again, but they certainly have hitched their wagons to the, stop Donald Trump train.
Yeah, go back to 2017, and then it was the Russia matter and this desire to handcuff President Trump and make sure that he couldn't get reelected, that he would lose in the 2018 midterms in the middle of his term, and just be an ineffective, weak president. Clearly, now they're hoping to use the Epstein matter to do the same sort of thing. Not sure if it's going to work. I mean, you have to look at the Russia matter and think, well, it didn't really come to anything. Trump lost the election after COVID in 2020, and now he's president again. So you'd think Democrats would say, this kind of constant pursuit of Trump sometimes doesn't work out, but they seem to be fully invested in Epstein right now.
Byron York, it's good to talk to you. Thanks, Byron.
Thank you, John.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.